Good morning, everyone, and today is the 2nd of January 2020. I always have trouble with that at the beginning of the first year that we have a change, and I keep wanting to call it the year before. When we used to write checks, I still do once in a while, but I'll sometimes forget to do that, and then the check will come back, wrong date, that kind of thing. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. I believe the chat is on. Let me double check and see. Yes, it is. Me Crazy Lala is already there. Hello. And I'm sure we'll have some more come in as you often do. So, you probably don't want to hear this, but I really didn't want to come on this morning. I had to argue with myself starting at about 4 a.m. this morning. That's usually when I kind of, wake up and kind of rub the sleep out of my eyes and start thinking about what I'm going to do. And I decided that, it probably is important that I go ahead and address some things, and you can see what we're going to hit up on here. And there are some reasons why. One is because, of course, our interview before with Mr. Richard Higgins, who had been in the NSC, the National Security Council in the White House, and some things have happened there. You're probably watching it. By the way, if again, I've said this before, most of you probably do have Twitter, and I'm probably going to tell you some things here that were on Twitter, and I've mentioned before that you could follow me there. So I'm probably going to repeat some information that you already know about, but I still think it's important to get it out and kind of explain it a little bit, and also give us the opportunity to just chat just a little bit on some of these things because they are pretty significant developments. The first, I'm going to reverse the order here again, not quite, but mix it up a little bit. We're actually going to talk about Virginia first because, as you all know, the information was broken. It's been about a week ago now that the UN had put out basically a call for employment, an opening for different people to be involved in disarmament positions. And it's caused quite an uproar. And I've checked this thing out. I've looked at it fairly closely. And it is a problem. There's no doubt that it's a problem. But it's really not calling up UN soldiers at this point. These are advisors, I think, would be the more correct term to look at this. In other words, there'll be managers over such a situation if it should happen. Now, again, I'm not saying that it isn't of some concern, because it absolutely is. I've known from personal experience being in the military and other places at the UN, especially with Obama, with the Safe Cities Initiative, which didn't quite happen, but we have all of these things where the UN has been really involved. For instance, what basically, I always bring this up, but what happened at Bundy Ranch was partly because of the pressures that are brought to bear by the UN. And then, of course, the kickbacks that Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton and those types get. But at any rate, I have a lot of experience with the UN. I know about that. And I'm not saying, again, that this isn't of concern, because it's a portent of things to come. But I don't think it's imminent, if you understand what I'm saying here. So we need to keep an eye on it. For certain, if any governor of this nation, actually Newsom's already in trouble for something very similar to this, but if any governor of a state makes arrangements with a foreign power, and that includes the UN, to come in, that's serious business. That's a crime. And I don't think, Trump has some loose ends with him. You know how I feel about that. We're going to talk about some of those things. But I don't think he would allow that to happen. I think that would be, I'm not sure how this is going to work out. Now, that doesn't lessen either the difficulty that we're having in Virginia, Washington State, Oregon, California, Illinois, Kentucky, etc. Not at all. It doesn't. It's something that we have to be aware of. But I just don't think that the governor would be able to get away with this. There's a lot of saber rattling right now, and this is by the leftist Marxists, and we need to saber rattle back. Don't misunderstand me. when they want to call for this type of violence, and that's what it is. This is the majoritarian coercion of the worst type in violation of the Constitution. I heard Nancy Morgan Hart this morning, or maybe it was last night, talking about this thing in Virginia. It's Headlines with a Voice. And she correctly stated, don't bet that if the military's called out, that they will side with the citizens. I've told you that there's a problem with that. I'm like her, I don't believe that the military will, without any thought about it, side with the citizens. I don't see that happening. You might get people that will not want to carry out the orders, for instance, firing tear gas or opening fire or whatever, but I've told you that this is a really bad situation, and the left knows it. And the military, you don't need everybody to be on that side, the state's side, or the deep state side, or the shadow government side, for this thing to be a problem. So it is very serious, and I would hope that American military personnel will not do this. But if they don't, the next step will be the UN, and you know how that goes. Okay, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on the details of that. This is a very serious thing, and Trump is ignoring it as far as I can tell. Now, it might just be that there's an old saying, and we've seen it in the news lately, right, where if your enemy is messing over his own plans, let him keep doing it. And so without really going forward, not really overtly doing anything, the government of Virginia, both the governor and the legislature, are really just, making a lot of noise right now. And it's making them look bad. I mean, all the leftist Marxists love it. Of course, the shadow government of Obama loves it. Of course, the IC loves it. Of course, China loves it. Remember back when the Sandy Hook thing happened, China said that Obama needs to disarm America, right? Well, here we are again. China, as you all know, if you're following this, China came out here a few days ago and said that the arms in the civilian hands is out of control in the United States. Thank God. Thank God. But if China feels that way, you're on the right side. So at any rate, I wanted to bring that up this morning, that much, and it is causing some stirs, though. And if you're following Twitter, which is what I started off with here, most of you know who Craig Sawyer is. Craig Sawyer he's basically the leader of Vets for Child Rescue, which is an anti-human trafficking organization that he started where he has veterans helping him do that. And they interface with law enforcement and they do some work together. He's not getting the big guys, okay? And none of these things are, because the big people are being protected. They're getting the low-hanging fruit by and large, but it's still a worthwhile effort. And I appreciate Craig doing that. You have Craig Sawyer, and we've talked about Matt Bracken, who is also a former Navy SEAL who lives in Florida. He has the website Enemies Foreign and Domestic, has written several books, is well thought of by military and military veterans such as myself, he talks quite a bit about these same things and has warned about what's happening in Virginia. As a matter of fact, he wrote a short story involving this exact same scenario that's going on in Virginia right now, and I think it actually took place in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, I wanted to read you what some of these, principally Craig Sawyer, is saying here. This is showing how desperate things are getting. I've heard Matt Bracken say, if they try to come and take the guns, God help them. I've heard him say that, and I've heard him say, get ready and those types of things. Dan Bongino has said, if they come and take his guns, he'll protest, but he won't resist. He'll try to, argue it some other way, which would be a lost cause, of course. But and if you start talking about resisting, they want to start saying that, you're guilty of conspiracy to overthrow the government or whatever, or to assault police officers, which isn't the case at all. But let me just read you what Craig Sawyer said, because I think you might want this. And if you have Twitter, you can go to his timeline, his Twitter line, and read these for yourself. They came out basically this morning, it looks like, very, very early this morning. So let me read this to you. Dear UN troops, or others contacted for this tyrannical debacle. This is a suicide sentence. Anyone participating in such idiocy here in the USA will only get themselves killed, probably in a nightmarish way, as should be expected for such ugly hostility. Then he has another post that he made shortly after that, about an hour ago, and this is what he says, referencing that first tweet. If enemies of the American people and our Constitution are actually going to try this, I say American patriots should take all those job offers at the UN and simply ensure no unlawful, unconstitutional orders get carried out against our citizens. Well, you know they're not going to allow that. Those types of folks who try to get those jobs will not be allowed to take them. So if you read between the lines here, I think you can see where Craig is on this, and I would say dare any military veteran, law enforcement veteran, current or past, that is in support of the constitutional principles is going to feel the same way. But Trump needs to get behind us to give us cover. He has to do that, and that's still lacking, as I've said all along, and it worries me that no stand has been taken. But if Trump feels that the Virginia governor, along with all these others like Newsom, etc., are just basically causing their own systems to fail, then don't interfere with that failing that they're doing. And that may be what's happening here, but I'm not certain. It would seem to me that it would be wise on the president's part to come out and make a very strong statement about this. But he has Barr to try to work through, and that's not going to be easy because Barr is against the Second Amendment, as we've talked about. So that's where we are on that, but I wanted to bring that up because I thought it was important for you to know. A lot of people are saying, well, what's going on in the military? What about the military vets? How do they feel about things? Well, I can't tell you how they all feel because a lot of them have been institutionalized, turned into minor Marxists, leftists, certainly progressives, a lot of different things. So I'm not certain how this is going to go. All I know is as I said, you've got to be willing to get prepared, okay, either way, because this is going to happen one way or the other. Okay, I'm going to come back to, I want to get to the Iraq embassy deal just for a minute, and then we're going to talk about the NSC purge by Trump, the National Security Council purge by Trump, just real quick. I put out a couple of videos in the last few days about my displeasure over what's happening in the Middle East generally, but particularly on the situation in Iraq. I don't want you to misunderstand me. And I said that this was not another Benghazi. It's not Benghazi 2, and it's really not, despite what Alex Jones has said, it's really not a repeat of Tehran in 1970s, the hostage situation. It really isn't. There's some similar things going on here. There's no doubt about that. But two things about the embassy. First of all, it's nothing like Benghazi, number one. In a lot of ways. You know, you're seeing these people there. Yeah, they're doing some crazy stuff, throwing rocks, using battering rams. They're burning things, they're throwing rocks, all of that. But we have yet to see a weapon. Okay, number one. Not saying it isn't serious. Plus, this wasn't set up by somebody in the White House to take out an ambassador or otherwise to cover for arms shipments to our enemies. Okay, so none of this is like Benghazi. None of it. Despite saying that, what I will say is that it was absolutely, in my opinion, the way that I've looked at this, it was absolutely correct for President Trump to take the firm action there at the embassy that he did. Okay, there's no question in my mind about that. My entire problem with us is that we're there, period, in the way that we are, and I question the events that are being promulgated by the media and by the military-industrial complex about what led up to this. Okay, it's sort of like in the Obama administration, they blamed it on the video. Remember the Muhammad video? And we knew it wasn't that. It really was an attack that was planned by and for the purpose of taking out any possibility of the information about the weapons trafficking getting out, okay, and some other things. What I'm looking at this time is that they want a war with Iran. Pompeo, apparently, I'm getting the distinct impression that Trump didn't like what happened here. I'm thinking that they pulled this whole thing off, including possibly even the airstrike on the PMF, the supposed Iranian militia, who, by the way, are fighting al-Qaeda. Why they would attack the American contractors doesn't make sense. So this is not adding up in any way, shape, or form. Okay, and I don't know what happened, but I really doubt that the PMF attacked K1. I really doubt that that's what happened, and that the contractor was, if the contractor was killed and these people were injured, it was probably something other than this organization is being blamed on. I don't know that for sure, but knowing the circumstances, it wouldn't surprise me. So they want a war. They wanted to cause something to happen here, and I got the feeling when I saw Pompeo and Milley and the Secretary of Defense give that briefing the other day, and I looked at Milley's face, and of course Pompeo, I never trust him. And I was thinking, they pulled this off without telling President Trump. They did this airstrike without telling President Trump what they were going to do. I don't think President Trump would have allowed it. If he did, he was a fool, okay? But I think this came up because he's given the military a lot of latitude. And this is what they'll do with it. They'll use it to orchestrate something that will cause a blow up in the Middle East. So Trump can't give him that kind of reign anymore. He can't. And I understand, I'm not certain about this, but apparently Pompeo was told by Trump, I don't know this for sure, okay? I'm just putting two and two together. It looks like to me that Trump said to Pompeo, look, you caused this mess, now you're going to stay there and fix it. I think that's what's happened. I'm hoping Trump is starting to flex his muscle. I think that's what's happening there. I'm not sure. But as I've said, and like a lot of other people have said, we have no business being there anymore. We just have no business being there. The lies there are a plethora of lies that have kept us there. And we just need to stop this nonsense. Anyway, I wanted to give you that kind of a background on how I feel about that. What I'm looking at. I'm not saying that that's a definitive analysis. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to say that the whole thing doesn't add up. But the bottom line of Trump protecting the embassy, absolutely necessary. That's like defending American soil here at home. There's no difference in that. Okay, so I don't have a problem with that. I did want to mention that there's an anomaly here. If any of you are paying attention, I don't know that it's in the mainstream media. Probably isn't. That the leader of this supposed protest, they're not terrorists, okay? I've looked at some of the flags and things, and I'll probably be attacked as being a deep state plant again or whatever, or an Iranian sympathizer or whatever. But I've looked at the people there. Yeah, they're probably being pushed. They could very well be pushed by these Iranian contacts. But the CIA is probably there doing the same thing because they want this. Do you understand what I'm saying? And as I said in my earlier post, John Bolton has contacts there. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he and possibly even Pompeo, Petraeus, maybe several others are over there whipping these people up. Bolton actually has contact with Iranian not revolution. I don't want to confuse them with the Revolutionary Guard. Iranian militants who supposedly are there to assist Iran, and even some that are standing against the regime. It's all a big game. And I wouldn't be a bit surprised if these people like Bolton and Pompeo and Petraeus and several others aren't pulling some strings in the background. So, yes, Iranians are involved, but look at the flags there. Most of them, all the flags I saw, I didn't see one Iranian flag. I saw Iraqi flags, and I saw some other things. But I'm not buying that this is just an Iranian deal. Okay, I'm not saying that they're not involved. And I just want to bring this up, and this is going to prove my point. The Badr Corps, all right, is led by a guy by the name of Hadi Ameri. Now, this guy that led that raid, and I'm not going to even call it a raid. They did break in to a certain point. There are some real problems there. I'm not saying there aren't. But he was actually in the White House with Obama at one time. You see how this is working? So the mere fact that this guy is the head of this group that is doing this protest is important, okay? And there's more involved here than it appears. I think, as I heard one gentleman say, we need to look at Saudi Arabia. You could also say Israel, because Israel doesn't, they want to take out Iran as well. But I think if you look at the deal here, and I've always said that Saudi Arabia and Israel are actually two sides of the same coin. They're the same people running both countries. But at any rate, we look there for where this problem is coming from. And the whole Middle East problem is coming from there. Iran is a problem, but it is not. I don't like the mullahs, but it is not the problem that Saudi Arabia is. I'm sorry. That's a Western intelligence piece of nonsense. I'm not saying they're not to be dealt with, but the real problem is in Saudi Arabia, as some others have said, and the meddling of Israel and of the CIA, all right? And that goes way back. So I wanted to bring that up today. I thought those were important. So let's move on. In the description box below, you will see that I have a link to a Washington Times article from the 31st, I believe it was. And it's an important link. And it talks about, the title of it on the Washington Times site is NSC Chief Slashing Obama's Bloated Staff to Create Efficient, Tight-Lipped White House Operation. And as I said, the link is there in the description box. I would encourage you to go read the entire article. Why do I want to address this today? Because we're concerned about Trump not acting, okay? I still am. I'm not satisfied with Barr. I'm not satisfied with no arrests. I'm not satisfied that we're still in the Middle East. I'm not satisfied that he hasn't put Virginia governor in his place. I'm not satisfied that he hasn't taken out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so don't get me wrong here. All right? And hold on a second. But the NSC has been a problem. A lot of the leaks that have occurred in the Trump White House were because of Obama holdovers and traitors and seditionists in the National Security Council. McMaster, big problem. He should be arrested today. Richard Higgins getting thrown out and people like him shows what was going on in this NSC. And I'm not going to go through and explain to you how the NSC works. I understand basically, but I'm sure there's some other particulars, and that's why I want to send you to the Washington Times article below. I'm going to touch on a few things here because I want you to know the basics, but please go read the article. It's well worth your time. It'll only take you about 5 minutes, if that. So the National Security Advisor right now is Robert O'Brien, and he's leading a National Security Council reform, as the story will tell you about. And he's basically saying that about 40 to 45 National Security Council staff members were sent back in recent months to the agencies where they came from. This is a good thing, and this is exactly what we've needed. So I wanted to read just a couple more things here because of how important this is. The Washington Times did an interview with Mr. Higgins. I don't know when this happened. It was apparently after I discussed this whole thing with him, so that's why he probably didn't get into this, or I think he would have when we talked with him. But you noticed, as I said, somebody was messing with the sound, and I'm not going to go into all the particulars, but yeah, that transmission was definitely messed with. There's no question about it. Okay, so, and again, it wasn't because I was talking. It was because Mr. Richard Higgins was here, and they could mess with me where they wouldn't be able to mess with somebody like Jones or Savage so much, or Limbaugh or whoever else he has talked to, the mainstream media. But with me, it's real easy. Okay, let me read you a couple of things about what he said in this interview with the Washington Times. Former National Security Staff member Rich Higgins said the NSC was set up to implement the president's policies, not the deep states, not the intelligence community, not the bureaucracies, because the president represents the will of the people. Let me start over again. Former NSC staff member Rich Higgins said the NSC was set up to implement the president's policies through command guidance flowing from the Oval Office to the NSC and then to the various agencies and departments, not from the departments through the NSC to the president. I mean, it is somewhat a two-way street, but the real purpose is to give advice to the president so that he can give out his command and guidance is basically what it is. Under previous Trump administration national security advisors, the communication flow was usurped as the priorities of senior officials, the bureaucrats, along with those of outside departments and agencies, were placed higher than those of Mr. Trump himself, Mr. Higgins said. The result was a foreign policy that oscillated and pitted Trump's voters against what appeared to be a calcified bureaucracy, Mr. Higgins said. He's being real nice there. It wasn't what appeared to be. It is. It is a calcified, entrenched bureaucracy that thinks that it should govern the country, not the will of the people. The privilege of serving on the National Security Council staff was abused by those who took these positions in a willful attempt to obstruct the president's and his voters' agenda, Mr. Higgins said. What a hero. What a hero. He's calling, and that includes McMaster, it includes Bolton. You see what I'm saying? Mr. Higgins praised Mr. O'Brien for eliminating those obstructing Mr. Trump's agenda. Then he goes on, he says, now the National Security Advisor needs to address, as he is able to support, the coup attempt against the president with all elements of power and to take immediate steps and implement safeguards and precautions to make sure this abuse of our intelligence, judicial apparatus never happens again, Mr. Higgins said. Okay, I just wanted to read that because that National Security Council was a real problem, and it's been central to many of the things that have happened. For instance, while they don't control the personnel, the other personnel in the White House, these people were there to spy. As we know about Ciaramella, right? You're not supposed to say his name, who cares? He was there spying and probably passing on information, and they would know anyway. When Trump would bring somebody in, they would delay the security clearance paperwork just to slow down anybody coming in there that could actually help President Trump. So there are a lot of ways that they've gone after him, and I just thought it was great that Mr. Higgins was able to clarify a lot of this. And if President Trump is wise, he will bring Mr. Richard Higgins and those that were perp walked out of that White House by General McMaster, he will bring them back. Mr. Higgins has already shown his loyalty to the principles of the Constitution of the United States, not necessarily even to President Trump, but to the principles, and for that I have to laud him. And I do. So, okay. Let me just see. I might mention a few things that Mr. Higgins said about the situation in Baghdad. Now, this was a couple of days ago, so he might have a slightly different take now as new things develop. But I just wanted to read these because I think that they're going back to the situation here in Baghdad, some of the things that he has said are really, really very good. Let's do this one here. There was a statement made by a Twitter account. We're going back now to the situation in Baghdad. This was a tweet put out by someone. I'm not going to say who it was, but this is what it said. I, for one, am glad Trump overcame his reticence to employ the military against Iran, which hasn't really happened. This is trying to push the issue. They need to see our strength. Does it sound like John Bolton in disguise? What they've done against us and our military cannot be ignored. You see how they're trying to do this? What really happened with the PMF and with the loss of the contractor, who is obviously, from all indications, was obviously a mercenary, and of course the other injuries that occurred. So that's the statement that was asked or stated, and then Rich Higgins replied like this: "Done against us? Question mark. Who shot up our base in Pensacola last week?" You seeing where he's going? What did I say about Saudi Arabia? Who is building a caliphate as part of NATO? Who supports Al-Qaeda and ISIS and the other hundreds of Sunni Salafist groups worldwide? Not Iran, and certainly not the Iranian people. That was Rich Higgins responding to basically a Bolton talking point. It wasn't Bolton that said it, but you see where he's going. And then Zero Hedge put out a tweet. And they're quoting, I think, what Senator Lindsey Graham was saying, but basically the tweet was, Iraqi militias vow strong response to U.S. occupiers imminent after airstrikes. Rich responds to that, and this is what he says. How's that Lindsey Graham strategy to guard the oil working out? What are we doing there? What have I been saying? How long have I been saying this? This Rich Higgins guy is really fantastic as far as I'm concerned. Baghdadi is dead. Exfil. Quagmire. Exfil means exfiltrate. You have infiltrate into a situation, then you have exfiltrate. So he's using a military term there. But he's basically saying that we should be out of this whole thing in Iraq. Okay? In Syria and all that. And I agree 100%, of course. Okay, and I could give you some things from Lee Stranahan, but I think I'll stick with Rich Higgins for right now. There was another tweet that came out that came from an individual, and she says, do you think maybe after all the years of death and destruction they want U.S. to leave their country? Remember I said they're really tired of us being there. They've asked us to leave several times, and people are refuting that, saying, no, that's a Russian talking point, or that's an Iranian talking point, or you're not patriotic or whatever. Really? So this person is saying, again, do you think maybe after all the years of death and destruction they want us to leave, the U.S. to leave their country? Of course, that's what's been going on. And this is what Rich Higgins says. The neocons are desperate to salvage the greatest foreign policy blunder of the past 75 years, when they gifted Iraq to Iran using American blood and treasure. Latest strikes bolster the hardliner Shiite position in Iran and Iraq. Most interesting part of this protest is that the Iraqi government had to allow these folks to enter the green zone. Do you understand the significance of that? So while it was right for President Trump to protect the embassy, it's not just the Iranians that are asking us to get out of there. It's the Iraqi government. You see that? So one contractor was killed, and we struck back at 5 targets 300 kilometers away to kill 34 and wound dozens of others. Anyone else think that this thing stinks? Yes. As I've said. So I wanted to give you those takes this morning. I don't need to take a lot of time. Like I said, I had to argue with myself. Not that I don't enjoy visiting with you all, but it's just that, there's what can we do? I mean, really, what can we do? This is just getting so out of hand. We're getting attacked by our own governments in this country, and nobody's putting them in their place. That's the main problem. We're being attacked by the federal government. We're being attacked outside by the UN. I don't even worry about the frickin' Al-Qaeda and ISIS over there. They're really fighting over their areas. The only reason why they come after us is because we're in the way. Not saying that they don't want to take over the world and come after us eventually, but we can handle that. Right now, we've got traitors and seditionists and criminals dealing with us in our governments every day. The federal government, the UN, of course, which isn't our government, but it's real close by. The Virginia state government, the bureaucracies, they take an oath to support and defend the Constitution. I heard Lionel talking the other day. Oh, no, they can prohibit certain types of weapons. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with Lionel about that. I don't. And this is way out of hand. This is way out of hand. And unfortunately, this could be the spark that really ignites this whole thing, and that's what they would want. The left has been trying to find a way to get the conservative Christian constitutional support base to react to their tyrannical activities and respond in a manner that will give them a reason to really come down hard. Well, Trump better not let them do that. And the way to handle that on Trump's part right now, he might be letting them cause their own problems now, cause their own failings, but he better be prepared to act as Eisenhower did in the South to protect civil rights in the South with the military. He better be ready to act and go against the governments of Virginia, Washington State, Oregon, California, Illinois, Kentucky, Maryland, New York, and there were several others who are trying to not just infringe, but remove the rights, God-given rights that are guaranteed to be protected by the governments of this country. They're all supposed to be Republican forms of government. I'm sorry, but that means no majoritarian coercion. That doesn't mean that a majority rules that they can decide to take away your rights. They can't do it. And if they try to, they're in violation of that law, the supreme law of the land, and they need to be countered immediately by Trump. Same thing with the babies that I've talked about, the killing of babies, no action on that yet. I mean, this is unbelievable. We want to point fingers at Germany for their Holocaust, gassing innocent people, killing innocent people. And yet our own government is allowing this to happen to the most innocent among us, and they do nothing. If we do fall, if we are destroyed, it's because of this hypocrisy and this evil. Okay, I'm done pontificating. Let's go to your chat real quick. See if anything there is there that I should cover. Yeah, the story of the drones over Colorado. I don't know all the details on that. There's a nuclear facility very close by there, and I'm wondering if this was some kind of a lead up to trying to do something there. But I really don't know. And you know what? They wouldn't let us know the truth about Las Vegas. You think they're going to let us know the truth about this? Our government. They're opposed to us. By and large, they're opposed to the people. So I'm not certain what's going on there. We'll have to leave that to some people that are local or who can really delve into it. I'm really not sure. Concerned citizen, the high-tech weapons will destroy us. They won't hesitate to use them against us. Guns will not save us from these monsters. Well, I realize that, but guns will help protect you from roving bands of mobsters, which is coming. Okay, that's still coming. To take a stand against the government, we need the cover of competent authority, as I've said, and if you don't do it that way, you're going to get yourself in a jam, which is why Trump needs to, look at that Article 2, Section 2, and Section 3 of the Constitution very closely, and the Insurrection Act and all that. But be that as it may, I'm not expecting you to defend yourselves against the government per se, but you need those Second Amendment rights to protect you against, and that's not what it's for, of course. Second Amendment is about standing against the tyrannical government when it turns on you. But you got to use a little wisdom here, if you know what I'm saying. So anyway, no, I realize what you're saying. They have not just radiological and biological weapons, but they have other things now that are just above and beyond. There was that over New York City the other day. If you all followed the story, there was a V-shaped object that was flying over, and we're pretty sure now that those are U.S. military Space Force weapons systems. I don't know how they operate. I'm not pretending to be privy to any of that information, but apparently it's kind of like the next step in the stealth aircraft that everybody, when they started seeing those, they thought they were flying saucers, UFOs, whatever. Some of these boomerang shaped things or these V shaped things are apparently weapon systems of the Air Force. I'm just saying. Oh, Jack Kennedy, that's nice. You're talking to Tony Blassetti. That's what I like, is when you guys talk in there. That's really neat. Yeah, Virginia is another. This will be the third time. Event history in the event horizon in American history. This will be the third time, right? Revolution, then the Civil War, and now this. Yep. Actually, I guess you could say the fourth time, because some of the first colonies were in Virginia, like Jamestown, for instance, Roanoke, right? So we had the colonization, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and now what's going on now. Yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Edelson James. Yeah, Happy New Year to you, too. Yeah, Sterali Mistrial. I'm sorry, I never get your name right, but yeah, you say Bolton is running the situation in Iraq and Iran, is running it behind the scenes. Yes, I am convinced of that. Like Harry Reid with fake intel briefings to Trump, shadow government. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have a shadow government. Why Trump hasn't raided Obama's headquarters there down the street and some of the other places is beyond me. I mean, President Lincoln would have taken these guys out a long time ago. President Grant would have taken these guys out a long time ago. Frankly, President Eisenhower would probably have taken them all out a long time ago. I don't know what Trump's waiting for. I don't. And I have a problem with that. Okay. Yeah, that's right, Gary. If they take your guns, they will take your head next, also known as guillotines or whatever. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, and that, of course, is the crux of the matter. That's where they want us, and that's how tyrants have done it through history. But especially the Bolsheviks, the communists, the leftist Marxists. We can see that everywhere in the modern world. So this pretense of trying to protect us from ourselves or protect us from criminals or protect our children or whatever, it's all BS. That's just the excuse that they can get us where they want us. That's right. No, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be an embassy in Iraq. No, I'm saying we shouldn't have military forces there other than quick reaction forces to protect the embassy. You see what I'm saying? I'm saying we shouldn't be. We should get out of it. No, I'm not. Not close the embassy, although that might have to happen. No, I'm not saying that at all. No, the embassy needs to be protected. It's American soil. That's the way that works. What I'm saying as far as getting out of Iraq, out of this whole Middle East quagmire, that's what I'm talking about. No, leaving embassy personnel there is fine. Then having Marines there to protect it, and then if something happens, like has happened this time, be able to send in quick reaction forces to stop it. No, that's fine. Not a problem with that. The reaction to the dangers that the people in the embassy were facing was handled exactly correctly by Trump. I'm again questioning what led up to that whole thing in the first place. That's what I'm questioning, and I'm saying is bad. Okay? I don't trust Pompeo, Milley, Bolton, even though Bolton's supposedly out, he has ties, like I've said. Yeah, there's no doubt a Soros-Clinton connection in all of this. The Virginia deal, the UN deal, the Iran deal. Oh, of course. Of course. But our government's more concerned about ranchers trying to stand up for their rights in Nevada and Oregon and Colorado and Texas. you know, our government's our worst enemy. And I've said that. The intelligence community and all that it's built up is our most dangerous domestic enemy. And that's what has. And this cleaning out of the National Security Council is a good thing. But it has to go further. That has to happen in the organizations that bring the personnel to place in the National Security Council. All those organizations need to be purged. If you've taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution in an officer capacity of any sort, and you are engaged in seditious speech against the Constitution, in other words, attacking the Bill of Rights, trying to overthrow the president, things like that, you should be arrested, like now. Free speech is protected, but not seditious free speech. This is just out of control. And because you're in a bureaucracy, shouldn't give you any protection whatsoever. As a matter of fact, you should be held to a higher standard. And that hasn't been happening. And again, we're seeing this clean out of the NSC. And that's good. That's a good first start. It's coming a little late, 3 years down the road. That worries me. Elizabeth Kilmus, you're back and you're accusing me of things again. I thought you'd had enough the other day. She says, Roy, you hired this MF to F this country up. What are you talking about it now? Why are you said you used the wrong. You must type that when you're angry. You know, Elizabeth, I appreciate you, but you know, you're out of control. You're out of here. I'm done with you. All right? We're not going to talk to you anymore. You know, I give you a pass. I give you another pass 3 times and you're out. Okay? No. Oh, Jesse's here. Jesse Waltman's here. Usually you come in under BP Earthwatch. Hi, Jesse. How you doing? Okay. Sherry Skousen, are you related to Cleone yeah, are you related to the Skousens there? You know, like Cleone Skousen and oh man, what's his nephew's name that does all this kind of like I do? Forgotten his name. That's interesting though, Sherry. Yeah, Hezbollah. Yeah, I realize Hezbollah is involved in this, but we've got to look at the bigger picture. Okay, that's the important thing that I'm saying, the bigger picture. I still don't know what the proximate cause of this whole thing was. I think we're being lied to. The circumstances don't match up with what's happened on the ground. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. So it really does smell like a false flag. Again, not that we shouldn't protect the embassy, but everything that caused this to happen, I don't like it. It smells bad. Yeah. Oh, here's BP Earthwatch here. Okay. Huh. Somebody using your name, or if you're using both? Well, it doesn't matter. He says many Saudis have been arrested for rape and assault here in the U.S., bailed out and put on a plane never to be seen again. Yep, that's for sure. All right, let's see if we've got anything else here going on. Yeah, Sherry Skousen, same McMaster installed Eric Chiramella as an assistant. Yeah, it came through Brennan, right? Yeah, it came through Brennan. I like that. Again, Starali, you say love for country over personalities and politics. You sound like me. Wow, we've got a lot of people making comments here, and I've already been going for 50 minutes, and I really don't want to go long today. I just wanted to basically cover those things that I said. Baghdad Bob, General Jones knows about Baghdad Bob. Yeah, we're seeing that. There's a form of that going on right now by the Americans. Okay, just so you know. Okay, I'm going to jump to the bottom here, see if there's anything I should address real quick. Okay. Spiral Bear, you say the amount of people spreading despair is really old. I'm sorry, Spiral Bear. I'm sorry. And I know. I wish I could. I wish I could come in here and talk about all the good stuff. Because when you talk about the good stuff, one of the things you can do is change the bad stuff by that. But I think you've been around me long enough that you know that I also have, while I want to be positive, while I want to be optimistic, I don't want to be stupid. I don't want to put blinders on. I don't believe in blind faith. I believe in principles, not personalities. I'm not into cults of personality. And so I know it's not aimed at me, Spiral Bear, but I do, but you see, I address it because I really feel that way. I do feel. I wish I could tell you everything is going to be wonderful, and I just, I can't. I wish I could. I really, really did. Gary asked, "What am I going to do today, Roy?" A couple of things. I got to catch up on some stuff. I'm getting ready to leave this section of the country and going to other places unknown. So. I'm just getting ready to pack up as soon as the weather breaks. I mean, it's been pretty good the last few days, but all around us it's been pretty nasty. Okay. So I think I'm going to leave it there for today. Okay, everyone? I just wanted to give you a heads up on some of the things that I see that are important. And okay, I think that'll do it. No, I'm not going to Virginia. No, 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 no. They've got enough people around there, and I'm not that. I mean, when I talk to people on here, I mean, it really doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it's a very small group, that kind of thing. I don't expect that I'd have any real impact anywhere. It just isn't going to happen. I'm not looking for followers. I'm not looking for, not even to get involved in anything really. I just like to point it out. I mean, there was a time, my prime is done. Really, it really is. And I stood up for principles a long time ago that even to this day are not appreciated or understood. So I've already done that. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but we need to take care of where we are too. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like sending troops overseas. They're not here to protect us. Well, if everybody goes to Virginia, who's going to protect the people in your state or your county, right? So be careful there. All right, be careful. Okay. Alrighty. I think we're done for today. Thanks for coming, everybody. Like I said, I just wanted to get you up to speed on my thoughts on what's going on here. Nothing real revelatory or anything like that, but just kind of the touch base. I'm just, again, very, very pleased that Mr. Richard Higgins gave us some time last week. And I was glad to see him mentioned in that Washington Times article. I think he's a voice for reason, and he needs to be back in the White House, not just on the NSC. He needs to be a very close advisor to President Trump, in my estimation. Okay. So here we are in 2020. Can you believe it? Yeah. And still no arrests. We're waiting for some word from Durham. Barr, but like I've said, even if Durham comes down with indictments, that doesn't mean that Barr is going to let it go forward. Or if it does, it's not probably going to be as many as it should be. And or then we got to look at the whole situation with trials and all that. So this thing is nowhere near where it should be. And I will just end on this. If the governor of Virginia and the governors of the other states that are involved in infringing on the rights of the American people continue to do so, Trump needs to act. Yes, Trump's probably trying to get the people to wake up and take some action on their own, but they can't do that without the proper cover, okay, as I called it, cover of competent authority. And if he's not willing to give that, then, ladies and gentlemen, he's not serious. Okay? All right. I'm going to let you go. Thanks for coming in, everybody. We'll see you later. Out here for now.